My parents kicked me out at 18, but years later, they called and said, "We sold our house, so we're moving in with you." When I refused, my mom laughed and said, "Then we'll just show up." The next day, they arrived with their bags and froze when they saw who opened the door. I was 18 when my parents kicked me out. No warning, no transition period, just a blunt, "You're an adult now. Time to take care of yourself." I didn't have a car, savings, or anywhere to go. College wasn't an option because they had made too much money for me to get financial aid, but they sure weren't offering to help. My dad tossed my bags onto the front lawn, and my mom just smiled like this was some kind of life lesson I should be grateful for. So, I couch surfed. Slept in my car when I got one. Worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs. I pulled myself up the hard way, the way they claimed they did, but unlike them, I didn't have a safety net. I struggled for years, but eventually I made it. I got a solid job, a nice place, and a life I could be proud of. No thanks to them. Then, out of the blue, I got a call. My mother's voice was sickly sweet. "Hi, honey. Your father and I just sold the house. We're moving in with you." I almost laughed. "No, you're not," I said flatly. She let out a small, condescending chuckle. "Oh, come on. We'll be there tomorrow. You've got plenty of space." I hung up. The next day, I got home from work and sure enough, there they were, sitting on my front porch with their bags. But they weren't alone. When the door opened, it wasn't me who greeted them, it was my lawyer. Let's rewind a little. The years in between, I cut my parents off after they kicked me out. Not out of spite, though I had every right, but because they made it clear I was just a burden to them. When I did try to stay in touch, my mom acted like she was doing me a favor just by speaking to me. "Are you still struggling? You really need to learn how to manage money better," she'd say, sipping her overpriced coffee in the house I wasn't allowed to step foot in. Meanwhile, I was skipping meals just to pay rent. So, I stopped calling. And they didn't seem to care. It wasn't until I started doing well that they suddenly remembered I existed. It started small, just friendly little check-ins. My dad would send me a text out of nowhere, "How's life? We miss you." Then, my mom started calling. "Just wanted to hear your voice, sweetheart. You know, family's important." Sure. Then came the real reason. They had sold their house. My dad had lost his job. They had lived well beyond their means for years, racking up debt they ignored because they figured they'd have plenty of time to deal with it. Except they didn't. Their retirement plan was simple: me. Their arrival, so there they were, on my porch, expecting to just waltz into my home like I owed them something. When my lawyer opened the door, my mom's face fell. My dad blinked. Who's this?" "My attorney," I said. My mom laughed like this was some kind of joke. "Why would you need a lawyer?" I crossed my arms. "To make sure you understand the legal consequences of trespassing." Their faces paled. I stepped forward. "You don't live here. You are not welcome here. And if you try to push your way in, I will press charges." My mom's smile was frozen in place, but her eyes weren't laughing anymore. "You wouldn't," she said, her voice wavering. "Try me." My dad stepped in, trying to play the reasonable one. "Son, let's talk about this inside. We're family." I shook my head. "No. Family doesn't throw their kid onto the street and then show up years later expecting a free ride." My mom's face twisted. "We raised you. We gave you everything." I let out a bitter laugh. "You threw me away like trash. You didn't care if I starved, if I had a place to sleep, if I lived or died. You don't get to come back now and act like you deserve anything from me." She opened her mouth to argue, but my lawyer cut in. "I have documents here stating that you are not to contact or approach my client again. If you do, legal action will be taken." She turned to me, desperation creeping into her expression. "You're really doing this? To your own parents?" I met her gaze. "You did it to me first." And with that, I shut the door in their faces. Unfinished business. A week passed. Then 2. I thought I was free. Then I got a letter in the mail. It was from my mother. "Since you refuse to do your duty as our son, we have no choice but to take legal action. We will be contesting ownership of the house as we believe we have a right to reside there. If you do not comply, we will be forced to escalate matters." I sat there, gripping the letter so hard my fingers went white. Contest ownership? Of my house? They were insane. I called my lawyer immediately. He sighed, already expecting this. "They don't have a legal claim," he said. "But that won't stop them from making your life hell." And he was right. The storm begins. The first thing they did was spread lies. They called family members, friends, even some of my coworkers. "He's abandoned us," my mom sobbed to my aunt. "We're living in a cheap motel, using the last of our money. He won't even return our calls. How could he be so heartless?" Suddenly, I was the villain. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years sent me nasty messages. "How could you treat your own parents this way? They raised you, and you throw them away like garbage? I hope you never have kids, because you don't deserve a family." I ignored them. Then, my boss called me into his office. I got an odd voicemail, he said, playing it on speaker. It was my mother's voice. I just wanted to let you know what kind of person you have working for you. My son is cruel. He left his parents homeless after all we did for him. If he can abandon his own flesh and blood, how can you trust him? My boss gave me a look. Not angry, just tired. I don't care about your personal life, but tell your family to leave me out of it. I clenched my jaw. I'll handle it. But I had no idea how bad it was about to get. Escalation. A few nights later, my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. My parents stood there, looking smug. Behind them, a police officer. My stomach dropped. I opened the door. The officer nodded politely. Sir, these two claim they are the legal owners of this residence and that you have unlawfully removed them. I let out a short, bitter laugh. They're lying. My dad put on his best wounded expression. We have no home. No money. We just need a place to stay, officer. My mother wiped away non-existent tears. He won't even let us inside. Our own son. I turned to the officer. They kicked me out at 18 and had nothing to do with me until they went broke. This is my house. The officer sighed. Do you have proof of ownership? I nodded. Give me a second. I grabbed the deed from my file cabinet and handed it to him. He glanced at it, then turned to my parents. This document states that he's the sole owner. You don't have a legal right to this property. My mother gasped like she was the victim here. But we're his parents. We have nowhere to go. The officer rubbed his forehead. Ma'am, that's not how the law works. My father's face darkened. He looked at me like I was dirt under his shoe. You're really going to let us suffer? I met his gaze. Like you let me suffer? Silence. The officer cleared his throat. You two need to leave. If you come back here, you'll be trespassing. My mother's face twisted with rage. You ungrateful little. The officer raised a hand. That's enough. Leave. They had no choice. They walked away, but I knew this wasn't over. And I was right. Breaking point. A week later, I came home to find my front door wide open. My stomach turned. I stepped inside cautiously. The living room was trashed. Drawers pulled out. Cushions ripped open. My TV was shattered on the floor. And then I heard it, shuffling from the kitchen. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, an iron fireplace poker, and crept forward. My parents were inside, rummaging through my fridge like they owned the place. Rage surged through me. What the hell are you doing? My mother spun around, holding a container of leftovers. We needed food. I pointed at the mess. And this? My father crossed his arms. We were taking back what's ours. I saw red. I pulled out my phone. You have 10 seconds to leave before I call the police. My mother's eyes widened. You wouldn't. I hit dial. She dropped the container. My dad grabbed her arm. Let's go. But before they left, my mother leaned in close, voice low and venomous. You'll regret this. Then they were gone. I stared at the wreckage, heart pounding. And I knew. This wasn't over. Not even close. After they broke into my house, I filed a police report. The officers weren't exactly hopeful. Since they're your parents, the court might not take it as seriously, one of them said with a sigh. But breaking and entering is still a crime. We'll keep it on record. Not exactly comforting. I changed my locks. Got security cameras installed. Took every precaution I could think of. But deep down, I knew my parents weren't done. The second break-in 2 weeks later, I got a motion alert on my phone while I was at work. I checked the security feed and my stomach clenched. My parents were outside. Again. Only this time, they weren't alone. They had a locksmith. I could barely process what I was seeing. My mother was talking to the guy, probably feeding him some sob story, while my dad stood there with his arms crossed. I called the police so fast my hands shook. Then I turned my phone volume up and used the two-way speaker on the security system. This is private property. Leave now or you'll be arrested. The locksmith jumped. My mom waved him off like it was nothing. Oh, don't listen to him. This is our house. He locked us out. The guy hesitated. Then my dad snapped, do your job. We're paying you, aren't we? Before I could say anything else, the squad car rolled up. The locksmith stepped back, hands up. I swear, they told me they owned the place. The cops were already moving toward my parents. I watched as they got cuffed right there on my front lawn. My mom wailed like she was being murdered. This is ridiculous. We're his parents. We have rights. The officer didn't care. Not when you commit a crime. And just like that, they were hauled off. I exhaled. Maybe now they'd finally leave me alone. The court battle. I should have known better. 2 days later, I got a letter from a lawyer. My parents were suing me. The claim? Illegal eviction. They actually tried to argue that, as my parents, they had an automatic right to reside in my home. It was insane. I took the letter straight to my own lawyer, who nearly laughed. They have no case, he said. But they're trying to drag you into court anyway. Probably hoping you'll cave and settle. Not a chance. We fought. They brought up every favor they had ever done for me growing up. We raised him. My mother shrieked in court. We paid for his food, his clothes, his school. He owes us. Their lawyer, probably embarrassed to even be there, tried to spin it into a family misunderstanding. But my lawyer shut that down immediately. The plaintiff threw the defendant out at 18 with nothing. No money, no home, no support. They have not contributed a single dollar toward his current residence. This is a frivolous lawsuit meant to extort financial support from a son they abandoned. It was brutal. And in the end, the judge dismissed the case. But my parents weren't done. The big lie weeks passed. I thought maybe, just maybe, they had finally given up. Then my boss called me into his office. Again. His face was unreadable. I got another call about you. I stiffened. My parents. He nodded. But this time, they're not just calling me. My stomach twisted. What do you mean? He handed me a folder. Inside were HR complaints. From people I worked with. Multiple employees received anonymous tips about you, saying you're a violent and abusive person who was arrested for domestic assault. I blinked. What? My boss leaned forward. I looked into it myself, and obviously, none of it is true. But someone is trying really hard to get you fired. My parents. It had to be. I clenched my jaw. Can I respond to these complaints? He nodded. We'll investigate, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Whoever's behind this, they want to destroy you. My own parents were trying to ruin my entire career. And that's when I realized they didn't just want my house. They wanted to take everything from me. Enough is enough. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to end this. For good. Final battle. I was done. For months, my parents had tried to bulldoze their way back into my life, not with love or remorse, but with manipulation, lawsuits, and lies. They had broken into my home, tried to steal my career. And now, they were smearing my name like I was some kind of monster. I had spent my entire life afraid of them. Even when they kicked me out, there was a part of me that still wanted their approval. But standing there, staring at those fabricated HR complaints, something inside me snapped. They weren't just bad parents. They were dangerous. And I was going to put an end to this, once and for all. Setting the stage, I knew exactly where they were. Through some digging, I found out they weren't actually homeless like they had been claiming. They were living in a motel, barely scraping by but still spending what little money they had on their lawsuit against me. Pathetic. I could have ignored them. Let them rot in their own mess. But no, I needed to make them face me. So, I sent them a text. We need to talk. Meet me at the old diner on 8th. 1 hour. Mom, so now you care? Be there, or I press charges for the break-in. I knew they wouldn't pass up the chance to manipulate me in person. And I was right. The showdown. The diner was nearly empty when I arrived. Just an old couple in the corner and a waitress too tired to care. My parents were already there, sitting in a booth. I walked up and slid into the seat across from them. They looked bad. My mom's hair was unkempt, her eyes darting around like she was waiting for someone to swoop in and save her. My dad, once so towering and overbearing, looked small, hollowed out by his own greed. But I didn't feel pity, just rage. All right, I said, voice cold. Let's get this over with. My mom scoffed. Oh, so now you want to talk? After everything you've done to us? I laughed. Actually laughed. What I've done? You broke into my house. You tried to get me fired. You sued me. And somehow I'm the villain. She narrowed her eyes. You abandoned your family. What else were we supposed to do? I leaned forward. You were supposed to be parents. Silence. My father shifted uncomfortably. He had always been the more practical one, but now he looked like a man cornered. You've made your point, he muttered. We just need a little help. I exhaled sharply. No, you don't get to use me as your retirement plan. You threw me away. You left me to struggle while you lived comfortably. Now that you're out of options, you come crawling back. My mother's face twisted. That's not fair. We did our best. No, you didn't. I let the words sink in. You could have helped me when I was struggling. You could have called, checked in, anything. But you didn't, because you didn't care. Until you had no other choice. I shook my head. You don't love me. You just love what I can do for you. My mom's eyes flashed. You ungrateful little. The waitress walked by, and my mother stopped, lowering her voice. But the venom was still there. After everything we sacrificed for you. Do you have any idea how much we spent raising you? The time, the money, the effort. I clenched my jaw. That's what parents are supposed to do. My dad sighed. Look, the past is the past. What's done is done. Can't we just move forward? I let out a slow, measured breath. You want to move forward? They both nodded quickly. Then here's what's going to happen, I said. First, you drop the lawsuit. Immediately. I already have enough evidence to countersue, and if you push this any further, I will take you to court. My mom scoffed, but my dad held up a hand. Fine. And? Second, I continued, you stop harassing my job. You stop spreading lies about me. If I hear even one more rumor, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. My father sighed, rubbing his temples. Is that all? I leaned in, voice low. No. Third, you stay out of my life. Forever. My mother's mouth fell open. You don't mean that. I met her gaze, unflinching. I do. She started shaking her head. You can't just cut us off. We're your parents. I felt something inside me settle. Some deep, lingering fear that had kept me tethered to them, even after all these years. And then, finally, it was gone. I don't owe you anything, I said simply. Not anymore. My mother started to argue, but my father grabbed her wrist. He knew. He knew I wasn't bluffing. And for the first time in my life, he looked afraid of me. The aftermath, they did drop the lawsuit. And the harassment stopped. I blocked them on everything. Ignored their pathetic attempts to reach out. For the first time in years, I felt free. Some of my relatives took their side. Called me heartless. I didn't care. The people who mattered, my friends, my chosen family, knew the truth. And that was enough. Reflection sometimes, people say that family is everything. That no matter what, you should always take care of them. But family isn't just blood. It's who shows up when you need them. It's who treats you with love, respect, and kindness. And if anyone proves that they don't deserve a place in your life, you don't have to keep the door open. Because sometimes, the only way to truly move forward is to let them go.